Hi everybody. Today I would like to briefly remember an extraordinary writer and book and movie. The name of the writer, one of my favorite writer, was Philip K. Dick. I think he left us too early, really. And this extraordinary book is Minority Report. Minority Report was written in 1956. There was also a beautiful movie out of it by Steven Spielberg with Tom Cruise, dated 2002. Why are these so modern and important? Well, the first question I like to ask myself rhetorically is how come Philip K. Dick, who died in the 80s, right? California around 86, 84, don't recall exactly, maybe a little bit before, knew everything in 1956, so we're talking approximately 70 years ago. Because why is it so important? Because this book really describes you our present time. It talks about the digital dictatorship, let's say, the ID control that we are living in our smart cities, in our unsmart cities, in our times. Basically, what is the theme of the book and the movie, whatever. But let's talk about the book. The theme is that in a future universe, this group of detective discovered a group, let's say, of policemen. They created this unity, let's say. They were supposed to uncover crimes before crimes really happened. But of course, crime, murders, assassins, these are not exact science. That's why if you will watch the movie or read the book, you will see that. But in the movie, the character of Tom Cruise, of course, was so sure at the beginning about the system. It was could not fail, but it did fail. And you will see why. Because you cannot really be sure of the certainty that the crime will be committed in that exact time, in that exact matter, and so forth. So I really wonder how come in 1956, the great Philip K. Dick understood everything already. And that was not because of the LSD. I think it's very interesting. In my playlist, you will find the detailed interview that Philip K. Dick did in Université de Metz in France in 1977. And if you look at the faces of these French people of the time, they were, oh my God, what is he saying? He was basically describing the Matrix, the real Matrix, that one that was described by an excellent movie, that is Matrix of 1998. Have you noticed, by the way, that all the most extraordinary movie that they were trying to tell you something, they were all prior the year 2000, right? There must be a reason why. How come? And they were always 2 hours, 2 hour and a half, never, let's say, like nowadays Netflix series or whatever. I mean, there are excellent series like Stranger Things. I love Stranger Things, but the movies before the year 2000 was something else. And sorry, I was saying, why so important? Because actually this book tells you where democracy ends, all right? Which is actually what is happening now. What is happening, let's say, in Europe? In Europe, we have a problem with all these migrants. Let's say these are not migrants. They call it migrants, but these are Mr. S soldiers. They were sent here for a specific goal, which is the substitution of the ethnicities in Europe, right? Because Europe won't be the same in 20 years' time. You won't find a blonde with blue eyes in Stockholm, or even if you're looking like that, you know? This is a goal, an intention of this globalist elite, of those who are pissing over your heads, but I was sustainable, the green economy, the liquid border, the smart cities, all this group of BS shitters, right? And they are really those in charge of the globe. The name globalist is not by chance. And they want to create chaos. They want to create a system of violence, of robberies, via these soldiers of them, of Mr. S. Mr. S is the one whose surname is always, even if you change the words, is always S and then S in the end, you know? That one who professed himself to be Jesus Christ, God. In an interview of 2014, yeah, I think it's more the Antichrist, right? One of the Antichrists, because there are several. And so once they create havoc, they create problems, they steal, they whatever, they create havoc, then what you do, you can defend yourself. You need your governments to defend you, to stay there, to support you, and to then they will put militaries on the street, because governments everywhere in the world, they treat you like idiots, like idiotic kids, like children, not like adults. So that's exactly what they want. It's like our Romans used to do, divide et impera. Once you divide the people, then you can conquer, divide and conquer. It's always the same thing. So why is so modern? Because you don't have to fall into this scheme, which is always the same one, since ever. Like Mr. Beloved David described in 1996, this is the system of this Kabbalist elite, whatever you want to call them, globalists. They always use it. They first create a problem. The problem could be a war, could be a virus, could be invasion of the migrants in Europe. Then they say, hey, but wait, we now will show you by our slave, the mainstream media, of course, that they really exist. Look at this. Look at how television said that, so it must be true. That's what the mainstream is paid to do, is paid to lie to you since ever. And then they, of course, they will prove it also in the parliaments of the world, because the parliaments of the world are there to say a lot of BS, but not the truth. So they will do law, they will put cameras instead of maybe helping unemployed people, people who are starving, people who cannot pay their bills. So no, they need to create war, they need to create a pseudo virus that don't exist, they need to and then they have to find somebody. It's the fault of the bat. The Batman, bats are those responsible of this virus. Really? Or is, okay. Always this the same scheme. First create a problem secretly. Find somebody to accuse. First they attack you, then they discredit you, and then I win, you win, if you don't believe them. So then, of course, they say, hey, but we have the solution. Europe is invaded by migrants, then we'll put the militaries on the street. Yeah? And then democracy is fucked, right? So this is exactly the fault where you should not fall into, because this is coming. This is coming, especially in Europe, right? They are doing on purpose to invade by soldiers paid by them, right? These, don't you see, they're all perfectly shaped. These are not people starving to death. These are not people coming from the war. These are people coming from them. This 1% of the elite during the world, that if the 99% of the people just wake up, they would not even exist. They would go just like that. And that's why it's very important you read this book or you watch the movie, because it exactly explains you that the system is failing. You cannot delegate the state. You cannot delegate. You have to first understand why they're doing it. Think, cogito ergo sum. Thinking is the most dangerous act nowadays. First you have to, why they're doing this? Is it true, really? And never divide yourself, because this is what they want. You have to remain unified. I see in London, especially now, they do it on purpose to create this, because they want to shape another Europe, another ethnicity. They want to abolish the religion, they want to abolish the sex, they're brainwashing the kids with this woke BS in the primary school. So think with your head, watch the movie, and watch especially the interviews Philip K. Dick did in 1977, because they're really very important to understand what is the system now. All these things were already explained in perfect details by the Fabian Society, because not all the Freemasons are bad. There were also the relatively good ones, the ones of the Fabian Society in London, people like that one who created UNESCO, Aldous Huxley brother, George Bertrand Shaw, George Orwell. They were all belonging to the Fabian Society. You don't know what the Fabian Society did? Well, check it out then. So these times of we are living, these are elite of gangsters, right, all over the world, and they're fighting one against the other. So just don't fall into the traps, because they will use it. They will use this scheme of the invasion of Europe. They will create havoc just because they want to militarize the streets, basically. Well, you don't get out anymore, you have the 50 mini cities and all this BS. So, first of all, you should know how to defend yourself. I was so surprised that here in Europe you all do Pilates and yoga. Sure, no, I do Krav Maga. If somebody attacks me, I know how to defend myself, but I don't know how to do Pilates and all this stuff, because I relax in other forms, let's say. But and in Switzerland, the country where I lived, there is the military service, for instance. It's a mandatory for the boys, and the girls can choose. But I mean, try to attack a Swiss policeman, you will see. First of all, they scare you just to look at them, because they're 2 meters tall. And so, I mean, people, government, treat in general in Europe, they raised you like idiotic children. You first have to defend yourself. That is exactly why the previous president of the United States wanted to cancel the First Amendment, what I don't remember what is the law, but basically, of course, they wanted the Americans not to use their own guns, and of course, because no, that's in the Constitution. I'm sorry, honey. So you see, you don't have to look for somebody else to save your ass. You have to first think, why are doing this? Why they? This is exactly what Philip K. Dick explained in all his novels, and also Blade Runner, of course, was our one wonderful book out of his portfolio. So I really recommend to go back and look at this movie, read this book, and in general, go back to the movies prior of the year 2000, because there was a great reset in Hollywood now afterwards. So, but maybe this is for another video. So, God bless Philip K. Dick, and God bless David. Bye.